India's technological hub Bengaluru has been reduced to a mess thanks to the incessant rainfall in the last 2 months. While normal life has taken a complete hit, at least 10 people are said to have died. The city's infrastructure is in doldrums. WION's Nishtita Virendra gets you more in this detailed report.
It has been a harrowing few months for Bengalurians. The city has witnessed incessant rainfall since August, bringing it down to its knees. Every day, citizens of the IT capital of India are forced to wade through knee-deep waters. The traffic snarls are unending, and open manholes and crashing trees only add to the woes. But it's not just the inconvenience. At least 10 lives have been lost in rain-related incidents in the last fortnight alone. The gushing waters have swept away people and turned the city into a soggy mess. Residents of Kendriya Vihar apartment complex had to hire vehicles only to enable movement of the residents from their home to the road.
Management is doing all the possible efforts. They are arranging this transport also from inside to outside, outside to inside, and they have installed pumps and broken the walls.
Several lakes in the city have burst banks and are flooding swanky localities. Many of these lakes are a frothing, foaming mess. Experts blame it on poor planning of the city.
Well, I think the problem is very systemic. You know, what's happened in the past is that, I've been in Bangalore for the past 10 years, and every year, we run into the same problem. So I think the unfortunate part is that, the rains, of course, have been unprecedented. But if you look at the infrastructure around us, I think there's a lot that's lacking.
The government, that has been on the back foot over infrastructural issues, has blamed it all on the incessant rainfall.
It is an unprecedented rain, I already told. We got about 800 kilometers of stormwater drain. We are given sanction, the thing. Work is already started. Nearly about 395, about 400 kilometers work will be over. Another 400 kilometers there. That wherever the priority this thing we are taking first.
Bengaluru has recorded the highest rainfall this year, surpassing its earlier record of 2005. But is it fair to shift blame on nature when poor planning and lack of vision have been the norm for successive governments?
Flooded localities, open manholes, broken roads, overflowing stormwater drains are all proving to be death traps to the citizens of the Silicon city of Bengaluru. While on one hand you have the government blaming the unprecedented rainfall, one cannot ignore the poor planning and infrastructure in the city that has led to the situation that is today. In Bengaluru, with video journalist Alphonse, Nishtita, WION.
Let's go straight across to our guest joining us on this broadcast, Vivek Memon, civic infrastructure expert joining us. In just a short while, we'll also have our correspondent joining us. Mr. Memon, I want to come to you with the aspect of how year on year, Bengaluru's, which is India's IT hub, civic mess comes to the forefront time and again. Things have gone well out of control this year. More than 10 people have lost their lives in just the last 15 days. What, according to you, is the government's absolute failure here, and who is accountable for the plight?
Well, I think the first thing is the fact that, that there's obviously no value to life over here. And I think the system is broken down because there's absolutely no responsibility, there's no accountability, and there's no liability attached to it. And, every year we see this problem surfacing. In fact, so much so that 10 years ago, there was a boy named Abhishek who was washed away. And in fact, the then BBMP commissioner blamed it on the mother. So we find that same apathy that's creeping in. And I think that's the larger problem that we have. Politicians, of course, are very involved, unfortunately, with the civic organization. You have 198 corporators who obviously have, vested interests in the infrastructure works because that's where most of the money is made. And I think with that, I think Bangaloreans are facing this huge mess of pothole-ridden roads, a civic apathy. Basically, all the parastatals are uncoordinated. There's public money that's just being wasted. And year on year, when it rains, we are faced with the same problems.
Yes, I do want to get in, Nishtita, on that aspect. What's even more unfortunate, Nishtita, is that even though lessons have not been learned as compared to last year, politicians continue to bicker even as an 18-year-old girl is washed away in the stormwater drains. What action has now been promised by the Chief Minister, and is that enough? Isn't it too little too late, as civic experts are saying?
Absolutely, without a doubt. It's not just being washed off, it's the fact that your roads are crumbling because of the rainfall. Bengaluru in the last 2 months is, if we do sit and put a count to it, at least more than 19 people have lost their lives in rain-related incidents. Every single time the questions are raised with the officials.
We'll just try and reconnect with Nishtita. A bit of an audio problem there. Mr. Menon, as Nishtita was also pointing out, I do want to also ask you on how what the Chief Minister has said so far is that no government, including that of the BJP, has made any efforts in the past. I have already cleared 800 crores for the 850-kilometer long stormwater drain network in the city. Why this action now? Was Bengaluru not aware of the weather forecast, warning of the heaviest rainfall in more than 100 years?
Well, I mean, this is a classic case of shifting the responsibility. And I think, I don't want to go into it, but I think successive governments have obviously shown this lack of empathy, this lack of, civic responsibility. And I think, it's just another question of passing the buck on. The fact of the matter is, I mean, you don't need 850 crores to fix this problem. I think we are spending our money in the wrong places. In fact, about 8 years ago, when we decided to create a model road here in Bangalore, we designed that road in such a way that, obviously this would last for 20 years. I've been working on several of the stormwater drains across the city that connect lakes to lakes. And, private developers have actually stepped in to build out these stormwater drains. In fact, so much so, from a safety perspective, I had actually asked them 8 years ago to install safety gates, and I designed these to international standards, which means if someone fell into a stormwater drain, they would, within a matter of at least 40 seconds, reach one of these, what I call as trash racks, which they could actually scale onto, get onto, and just walk away from. Now, we have found a lot of people actually being washed down these drains and washed into lakes. All you find at the end of the day then is their dead body. And I think nobody really cares about them. So I think this apathy is what is really killing the system. I do appreciate the fact that the Chief Minister has actually probably released this kind of money, but this money is not going to be put to good use. It's probably going to land up in the pockets of some unscrupulous corporator or unscrupulous politician. And I think, successively, year on year, we are faced with the same problem. And most Bangaloreans, who have lived over here, who care for the city, are today at their wits' end in terms of what needs to be done. I would say that, while governments are promising this kind of money, I think the administrative setup has completely failed us. Whether it's the BBMP, the BWSSB, BESCOM, the lack of coordination between these different civic agencies is today leading to this pathetic situation that we are faced with. And, the loss of life doesn't seem to really perturb them.
Mr. Menon, what the Chief Minister has also said, and which would appall many, is that he talks about how the drainage network, the drainage system is unable to cope with the unprecedented rainfall. How bad and how serious is the problem of drainage in the city, which has seen heavy rainfall? It's not the first time. Certainly the heaviest rainfall this time around, which certainly has added up to Bengalurians' woes.
So let me put it in perspective. We have developed plans, believe it or not, with several other agencies as well as, international, non-profit organizations. There's two aspects to this. One is this whole problem of flood mitigation, and the other is water securitization. Now, we could, with the kind of rainfall that Bangalore gets, kill two birds with one stone. Flooding on one side is happening because of the fact that unscrupulous politicians, along with developers, have actually filled up a lot of the lakes. In fact, this whole community called Koramangala, which most of you all are familiar with, was actually a tank bed. Now, the fact of the matter is those have been converted into localities, and the sheet flow, the surface runoff that you get, is actually not even reaching the storm drains. Now, let me put it in perspective. The storm drain network that we have, along with the lakes, is probably the best in the world. Right? Because when the British designed it, they designed it with a way of mitigating floods, at the same time ensuring that we have enough of water to supply to the different neighborhoods around us. Now, once the fact of the matter here is that solid waste, the lack of solid waste management has meant that most of the solid waste has landed up in these Rajakaluways or nalas as we call them. They're basically choking the nalas, they're choking the lakes, and BWSSB is another big perpetrator because most of the sewage finds its way into the stormwater drains.
Right.
Now, if we were to really fix the system, which can be fixed today, we would actually clean up all the stormwater drains, ensure that there's no sewage entering these lake systems. And with that, if we were to clean up prior to the monsoons, maybe about 6 months prior to the monsoons, if we were to clean up the tertiary drains of the secondary drainage network, this would connect to the main drains and you would absolutely not have any flooding, while at the same time ensuring that the water table rises and that we have enough of water security for Bangalore also. So for governments to come out and say that we have had unprecedented rainfall is just absolutely nonsensical. They've just not applied their minds. There's absolutely a lack of planning. There's no engineering prowess in any of these parastatals, any of these departments.
Absolutely, and year on year, a similar
BWSSB.
situation. No lessons seem to have been learned this time around as well. Unfortunately, Vivek Menon, appreciate you joining us on the broadcast. We're completely running out of time. Also thanking our correspondent, Mr. Virendra, for getting us all of those details.